In this video, I will be discussing the problems with Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. If you're a comic book fan, the chances are that you have heard of it. Before I begin though, I do want to establish that I think The Killing Joke is a great comic. It is probably the best Joker storyline ever. It is a perfect portrayal of how twisted and dark the Joker is. This is a cornerstone comic for anyone who wants to understand the relationship between Batman and the Joker. It gives us a fascinating look at what the Joker's origin could be, and the artwork is also wonderful. However, it's not all good. Unfortunately, it's rather problematic in its portrayal of Barbara Gordon, and that is putting it lightly. Barbara Gordon is the daughter of Commissioner Gordon. Also, she is incredibly intelligent, and she is a highly skilled crime fighter. She is Batgirl. But in the original Killing Joke comic, she's only portrayed as Commissioner Gordon's daughter. She doesn't get her own identity as a character, and it is never even mentioned that she is also a badass crime fighter who has had years of her own adventures leading up to this point. As I said, it's problematic. For those of you who don't know her part in the story, the Joker shows up at the Gordons' house and shoots Barbara right through her spine, instantly crippling her. He then proceeds to take pictures of her naked, then he kidnaps her father and forces him to go through a twisted funhouse where the photos are all on display. In the story, we get Barbara Gordon as a plot device. She is used to create tragedy for Batman and the Commissioner. We are encouraged to feel bad for her, but our sympathies are mainly directed towards Jim, her father, which is not right. This is all wrong. Barbara should be portrayed as being as resilient and tactical as Batman himself. Batgirl is a well-established character, and it is a damn shame that the writer Alan Moore does not care for her. However, in a 2006 interview with Wizard magazine, Moore criticised his own decision to cripple her. He said, "I asked DC if they had any problem with me crippling Barbara Gordon, who was Batgirl at the time, and if I remember, I spoke to Len Wein, who was our editor on the project. He said, yeah, okay, cripple the bitch. It was probably one of the areas where they should have reined me in, but they didn't." Can you believe that? Cripple the bitch. Good job, Mr. Wein. Way to have a respect for DC property. This of course doesn't take any blame from Moore, but it's pretty disheartening to know that no one had any objections to how the situation was handled. They didn't even have a Batgirl tie-in issue. Initially, this was meant as an Elseworlds story, meaning a story that uses these characters but is not a part of the main continuity. However, DC and their fans enjoyed it so much that it became an established part of continuity, and therefore Barbara's disability became a fixture of her character. Batgirl had her last adventure in Batgirl Special Issue 1, but thankfully her story doesn't end there. In fact, the one good thing about this ordeal is the fact that DC reintroduced her as their first disabled hero. However, I'll go into further detail on that in a different video. So I want to reiterate, I personally don't have a problem with the fact that she was crippled by the Joker. That made room for a whole bunch of great stories where she had become Oracle. However, the problem is in how they handled it. As I've mentioned, we don't see her side of the story at all. The first time we see her is just before she is shot. The next time we see her, she is in hospital and tells Batman that the Joker has her father. The last time we see her is through the eyes of Jim, as he sees the horrid pictures that were taken of her by the Joker. All she is in this story is another victim. Nowadays, I feel like we have this problem a lot less. Comics have come a long way in the last couple of decades. Thankfully, there have been no more women in fridges. Google that if you're curious. Women in fridges. I personally have seen a great increase in terms of making comics more female friendly. It's not just that there are more female characters, but there has been a great surge in diversity in general within the industry. Whereas most heroes used to be middle-aged white men, we now have a great array of heroes of all different cultural backgrounds. But now, to get back to the point at hand. With their highly anticipated animated adaptation, DC had the perfect opportunity to fix The Killing Joke. And after watching it, I can confidently say that they failed to do so. We were all told that we would be given an extra Batgirl story to flesh out the character. This sounded good. Perhaps it would help to give her an arc of some sort. Nope. In fact, they managed to make The Killing Joke even more misogynistic than before, by making Batgirl be in love with Batman. Also, they screw. Thankfully, after that initial half hour, it begins as just the original story. The rest is very faithful and therefore still pretty good. That is, everything except the problem I was discussing earlier. Seriously, DC, can you please stop disappointing me with your Batman films? I'd really appreciate that. So in conclusion, I do recommend The Killing Joke. I do recommend reading the book, and I also recommend watching the movie, even if you have to skip the first half an hour or so. I guess the point of this video was just to bring a spotlight to some of the sexism in comics and in other industries too, like the animated film industry. The Killing Joke is a fantastic story, but it isn't perfect. So anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble. If you want more geeky good stuff just like this, then please subscribe to the channel. Also, you might have noticed this little Batgirl logo that I made, which is like my normal logo, but with Batgirl instead of Batman. Pretty neat, right? That took me like a whole hour. And it still doesn't even look that great.